You want to put yourself in the top 5%? Create the space to think. Get silent and think, and then write down what shows up. You immediately go into the elite. You immediately become part of the elite in terms of practice. And when you're part of the elite in terms of practice, you become part of the elite in terms of status. That's quotable. Let me say it one more time. When you are a part of the elite in terms of practice, what you do, then you cannot help but become a part of the elite in terms of status, in terms of what you accomplish. That's why I'm so against us being average. Because greatness is right at our fingertips. It's like right there. All I got to do is be quiet and think. And then write down what comes to my mind. And then on Saturday, I'm going to give you the formula to what to do with it. That's it. Here's the last thing. 20 years ago, I remember I was at an ATM. I was at work. I was at an ATM. Behind a person who I work with, they had $1,000 in their account. How do I know? They left the receipt. Right? I pulled money out. I had less than $1,000. We had the same job. Right? We looked different backgrounds. And I said to myself, that ain't cool. How is it that we make the same thing about, and he's got 10 times more than me? I set a goal. I wrote it down. I thought it, right? I want $100,000 in my bank account by the end of the year, right? $100,000. I wrote it down. By the next year, I had the first $100,000 in my bank account. I know it works. Question is, will you work it?
If you want to be about it, come on, let's talk about it. Change up the things you see. Open your mind to possibilities. Find your power, passion, and your purpose. You know it's time for you to walk in greatness. Let's murder mediocrity. Play your goals, live out your dreams. Right now. Inspirational perspective.
One of the things that we've been talking about is, like, don't be average. And in order not to be average, then you can't do what average people do. Now, that doesn't mean, to work on holidays per se, right? However, what I've learned in my journey is the more that I do that is outside of the ordinary, the closer I get to the accomplishment of my goals. And that's what I want to talk about today. Like, how do we become a part of the 5% or the 10% that actually achieve their goals? How do we become a part of those? How do we become a part of that tribe? And what we've been doing, for those of you, if this is your first time listening, we've been walking through a framework. And I've been teaching from this framework. I've been using the element of this framework on how to manifest anything into your life. Now, first, I think there's so much talk about this that it can sound like static when you say it. But remember, like, who this is coming from. And I was telling Ade, when I came into the studio this morning, I was talking to a friend of mine, and he was like, hey, how is registration for the masterclass going? I'm like, it's all right. I got goals, right? I was very clear what I want, and we're not there, right? And he was telling me, he was like, well, Linnell, he's like, you're pretty private outside of, your public persona on the radio, things like that. He's like, you're a pretty private person. And he was like, I know you. I know you know you. He's like, I know how incredibly successful you are. He was like, I have dinners with you and I see, how you pull up. He's like, I see you give the valet $50 and like, keep it here. He's like, but you don't talk about any of that and how you achieve that. And I was like, as soon as he said it, I started gritting my teeth like, oh yeah, And he's like, you want people to follow what you say in terms of what it takes to create success. He's like, but maybe you should show them your success. I was like, okay, well, maybe. Right? Then I had a conversation. I followed that with a conversation with one of my mentors. I was having this conversation with him. Like, I learned, and let me tell you why I learned to be discreet. I learned to be discreet in corporate America. One of the 48 laws of power by Robert Greene was never outshine the master. Like, never outshine the master. And so I followed those 48 laws. Like, I believed them. And so if I had a boss who drove a particular type of car, like, even if I had a car that was better, I never drove it to work. You get where I'm going? Like, I never drove it to work. And I didn't talk about, for instance, when I was in corporate America, I was already an entrepreneur. Real estate business, other businesses. I didn't talk about those things. And I believe over the past 2 decades, I've become so accustomed to not talking about what I've achieved that I just don't. I don't talk about it. I don't show it. Matter of fact, if you follow me on Instagram, I don't show anything. I don't, on my car, oh, look at my baby getting washed, I see some influencers do that, right? And that's how I don't do those kind of things. I don't know that I will. I do think maybe if somebody out there is not, like for some reason you're like, I'm not sure I should spend 2.5 hours with this guy, I might post a few things today. Just like if that's what's necessary. It's not what I want to talk about, but it was just in my space. Because what I want to talk about is how I achieved it. That's what I'm more interested in. Is like sharing how I achieved it versus showing what I achieved. But I think maybe sometimes people need to, they need to hear it, right? Like they need to hear or see, like the accomplishments to be like, oh, look, okay, maybe I'll listen. Maybe I'll learn. Maybe I'll learn from this person. And if I believe that God provides blessings in a way, not to be proud and haughty, but maybe to inspire others. And so it's something I got to pray about, but it's just in my spirit. Okay. Here's what I want to talk about today. It's so-called Christmas Eve. My wife and my son, they call me the Grinch. They call me the Grinch. And the reason they call me the Grinch, I love this about my wife. It's one of the reasons I married her. Like she gets excited about things and she's bubbly, and anybody who knows her knows she got this wonderful personality. I think she's a beautiful woman, and then her personality and how she does life just makes it even, to me, more attractive. And she's got my son, man, he's 6 years old, and they are into it. Now, Rain, she's 1. She don't really know what's going on, right? What she does know is that she can't get to the spot where all the gifts are piled, right? We got it blocked off, and she just, she's looking over. We got an ottoman in front of like the little pathway by the couch, and she's constantly looking over. She's like the, wrapping paper so bright. She's looking like, my son just jumps over and goes and he'll count the gifts, and then he'll read off what's his. Right? I got 5, Daddy, You got 1. I'm like, only one? That's the cost of being a daddy. But they're excited, and they'll be like, Linnell, you're a Grinch. And it's not that I'm a Grinch. What it is I know I'm so clear about what I desire in life that the bright winter lights and Christmas lights and the Hanukkah symbols and all of it that comes with this time of the year when we celebrate winter solstice. I mean, did I say that? I'm sorry. When we celebrate Christmas is all of that is cool, but I get that it's a spirit that will confuse you and distract you from the main thing. Let me say it again. It's a spirit because we live in a physical realm that is enveloped in a spiritual realm. Okay? And it's a spirit that will distract you from the main thing. What's the main thing? Your goals. So it's not that I'm a Grinch. It's just that after Monday, my son still has to lift the spoon to his mouth. You follow? My wife will still need gas in her car. And one of the beautiful things, I believe, of being in their place, like as a man, I'm the leader of the home, like I think about these things. And one of the beautiful things about where she is and where my son is, they don't. They don't have to. And my wife owns a business. I'm not, but you get my point, right? She's got something to fall back on. I don't. You say, well, you could fall back on her. Any man understands that I have nothing to fall back on, right? Okay, let's be clear. All right. Now, and I believe in a partnership and marriage and all that. I'm just being, any real man just shook his head. He gets it. There are a lot of women who are like, oh, I don't get, you can fall back. Don't even try to comprehend it. It just is what it is. All right? Okay. So, in the spirit of the holidays, I want to talk about gifts, right? Like I'm not going to go against the grain today, right? I'm not going to be a Grinch. However, I do want to talk about your top 2 gifts that tomorrow, maybe today, this evening, people will be opening gifts. And they'll be assessing what it is that they really wanted or got. Like, did I really want this? They'd be like, oh, my God, thank you. And they're really like, what in the... Right? And they'll be assessing whether or not this, like, what's your favorite gift? And I would like to share that you already have the best gift you can get. The best gift that you can ever have, you already have. The best gift you can ever get, you already have. You already have it. And I want to talk about these 2 gifts. Now, in the framework, how to manifest anything into your life, we've covered vision. We've covered declaration. We've covered, put it up on the screen real quick, Ade. You got it up? Okay. I began to cover writing it down. I began to cover it, right? But we haven't necessarily really went there, and that's what I want to talk about today. What distinguishes a human being from any other living creature on earth? What distinguishes a human being from any other living creature on earth? And this is how we're going to identify the top 2 gifts. The top 2 gifts. Humans possess a number of characteristics that distinguish them from other living creatures on earth. And when you do your research, there are 7 characteristics that they say that humans have that distinguish them from any living creature on earth. Okay? The first is complex cognitive ability. Okay, complex cognitive ability. Humans have advanced cognitive abilities. We have increased self-awareness over most beasts, right? We have abstract thinking, problem solving, and the ability to use language to communicate. And not only can we communicate, but we can communicate complex ideas. That sets us apart, right? Many animals in the animal kingdom can communicate. What they cannot communicate are complex ideas. All right. That's one. Number two is the ability to use tools and technology. Okay. As human beings, we develop complex tools and technology that manipulate the environment around us. And that gives us leverage, right? And it improves our quality of life, and it definitely sets us apart from any animal. That's number two. Number three is our culture and social organization, right? We have human beings have complex social structures, politics, right? And don't, like, animals have politics too, right? Two male bucks, when they fight, and they're bumping their antlers, like that is, the equal of a political election that's used by just brute force, okay? Like, this is my territory, you gonna leave, right? There's no democracy. It's all like whoever the strongest, survival of the fittest. Then the other thing that we have is the capacity for self-awareness and introspection. Like, humans possess a high level of self-awareness. We have the ability to reflect on our own thoughts and process our emotions and contemplate our existence and our purpose, okay? Which is a gift. That's one of the gifts God gave us, by the way. And the difference between us and animals is the bird knows its purpose and delivers on that purpose without hesitation. Whereas human beings, because we have all this complexity, we come into the world, and if we're not taught properly, we don't know our purpose. I'll come back to that later, okay? Which is one of the reasons many of us struggle in life. Imagine a bird that was looking at a fish. It's like, he swims so well. It's like, and the fish is looking at the bird, you fly so well. And they're envious of one another, right? Like, you serve two different purposes. And I talked about one of the purposes of the bird is to sing in the morning, and the frequency of that singing is part of what opens the plant life around it so it can begin to receive the rays of the sun and begin its photosynthesis process. So the bird serves a purpose for the flowers, for the plants, and for the living greenery around us, which is so fascinating when you think about it, like how magnificent the Creator is. Then, as human beings, number 5 is our ability to adapt and innovate, right? Human beings, we have a remarkable ability to adapt to various environments. I mean, you have Eskimos who can live in the cold, and other tribes in Africa that can live in the deep heat. And they figured out, I think about the Maasai who live among the lions, and the lions are afraid of them. All right, they figured out, they just, they could be walking by themselves, a lion comes, they're like, oh, they jump, got the red, get loud. Lion's like, nah, no thank you. Right, walks away. Remarkable, okay. Number 6 is our emotions, right? Humans are complex emotional beings, wide range of emotions. We have the ability to form deep and meaningful relationships, and we have the capacity for empathy and compassion. And then number 7 is our capacity for symbolic thought and imagination. We have the ability to think symbolically, imagine abstract concepts, create art, and write literature. And that's what forms part of our creative expression. All right, so these are the 7 things that humans have. Now, there are only 2 that animals don't have. And we might have the other 5 at a different level of complexity, but that's because we have 2 things the animals don't have. And those are the 2 gifts the Creator gave us that I'm going to talk about today on this Christmas Eve. So if you want to get one of the best gifts that you're going to get in the next 48 hours, keep listening. Keep listening, okay? And I'm going to try to get this done in 20 minutes. So keep listening. The 2 here that I really want to point out is complex cognitive ability. That's number 1. That's the first gift. That's the first gift. And then number 7, the capacity for symbolic thought and imagination. Now, somebody out there saying, yo, hold on now, man. You mean animals have all the rest of that? Yes. You know, you can teach a chimpanzee to use a computer. They've already done it, right? So animals can use tools. I've trekked with gorillas multiple times. I noticed in being with 2 different gorilla families that they have different social structures. I saw it right away, right? One gorilla family, the silverback alpha allowed 2 other younger silverbacks to be a part of the troop. Then there was one where there was no other silver. He wasn't having it, right? So that's a different social circle. I mean, period, right? They know how to do that too. They have very strict social rules, which is one of the reasons why I can take leaders to Uganda to trek with gorillas, because of the social order of the gorilla. You know, if we are greeted and accepted by the silverback, no other gorilla is going to do anything to you. It's just that simple, right? And the rangers make sure that happens. So that's a strong social circle, more so than human beings. You can walk into a group where there's a human alpha, and he's like, don't touch this guy, right? And then someone else who wants to be the alpha will grab him. Like, I feel safer with gorillas than I do in human groups, period. All right? So they have a stronger, in my opinion, cultural and social group than sometimes we have. You know, in terms of self-awareness and introspection, it's been proven that animals can do this as well. And we already know that animals can adapt and innovate. You know, beavers build dams, etc. And we know that many animals have complex emotional lives. Like an elephant, I was watching this program where an elephant mother, she lost her calf, right? And she was distraught. And they were like, you know, she's distraught. She stopped eating. That's emotion, okay? She was experiencing emotion. So animals experience emotion too, which is why the Creator instructed us that it's okay to eat meat, but that we should go about it in a certain type of way. Because they have emotions. When they're distressed, they push cortisol through their bodies the same way that we do, right? And if they're not slaughtered properly, that cortisol is in the meat. This is why there's kosher eating. This is why there's halal meat, because people who are following the instruction of the Creator know you just don't eat any kind of meat that was slaughtered any kind of way, because it could be dangerous for the human body, okay? Because animals have emotions. So that leaves us with 2 things in particular that they can't do. They can't write. Now let's think about that. They can't deeply think, like cognitive ability, in a way that creates abstract thinking and problem solving. This is why many times humans have to save animals, right? You see maybe a sea creature with the 6-pack can thing around their neck, and they can't get it out, and neither can their buddies. It's like they can't think on how, here a human comes along, oh, let's save them. Oh, within a matter of a moment, the animal's free, right? Animals can't problem solve in the way that human beings can. Your ability to think Your ability to think is one of the biggest gifts the Creator gave you. Your ability, let me say it again. Your ability to think is one of the biggest gifts the Creator gave you. Earl Nightingale, his claim to fame and how we remember him most is the strangest secret. And he said what the strangest secret is you are what you think about. You become what you think about. So one of the gifts that the Creator gave us is the ability to think. Scientists have put nodes on the head to measure whether or not thoughts have frequencies. And indeed, they have found out that thoughts do. Your ability to think is one of the biggest gifts the Creator gave you. So then what do you think about? And if what Earl Nightingale said is true, are you thinking about what it is that you intend to create? Does that dominate your thoughts? Because you become what you think about. That's gift number one. I'm going to come back to that. I got more there. Gift number two is the ability to write. Now, I want you just to sit down and think about this. Like literally, if you can, sit down. If you're driving, pay attention to the road, but just clear your mind for a moment. How often do you write down your thoughts? If these are the two biggest gifts that the Creator gave us, if you were to measure your utilization of the gift, where would you place yourself on a scale of 1 to 10? Where would you place yourself? Are you thinking about what it is that you intend to create? And then, as you think it, you're writing it down. The third key to manifesting anything in your life is writing down the goal. Writing down the goal. That's the third key to creating anything in your life. And the Creator gave us the two gifts that will differentiate us in this life. Now, here we are, 21st century, 2023. And we live in environments where you can barely wake up and have a self-sourced thought. Just think about that. You can barely wake up in the morning and look out the window and just take in what's around you and have a listen to me, a self-sourced thought. And some of us can't even look out the window because you live near a billboard. You can't even look out the window and look at God's creation. You can't even see God's creation because man's creation has covered it up. You might look out, you see a brick wall. You know what I'm saying? Like a man has built a building there. It's a brick wall. So you can't even look out the window and see God's creation and have a self-sourced thought. So in man's ingenuity, in some ways what we have done is separated ourselves from the two top gifts God's given us. And folks will be excited tomorrow when they open presents. Some people are going to get exactly what they wanted in that moment, but they'll never receive what they want in life. Like, let that sink in. Tomorrow, people will open gifts, and That day, they'll get exactly what they wanted. That day. But they'll never have the opportunity to open the gift of what they really want to achieve in their life. And there are two reasons why. One, because we aren't creating the space to create self-sourced thoughts. We aren't creating the space to create self-sourced thoughts. And then number two, we're not distinguishing ourselves from the animal kingdom and writing it down. Can it be that simple, Linnell? Could it be that simple? When you look at the top 5% of people on the planet, when I say top, I'm talking about in terms of income, in terms of their ability to create what they intend to create. When you look at the top 5%, almost all of them are unplugged from the system. And get this, and creating what you're plugged into. Steve Jobs, when they asked him, how often do you let your child use an iPad? Oh, no. Right? So creating what you're plugged into and they're disconnected from. Let that sink in. That's how most of the top 5% are content creators in some capacity. And we've got to get a lot more thoughtful and careful about the content that we're plugged into. A self-sourced thought. Think about that. Now, if the Creator, follow me here, if the Creator made man and gave man a piece of his spirit, right? Gave man a piece of his spirit, then consider that all you have to do to connect with the magnificent power of the Creator is to be silent and have a self-sourced thought. That's all it really takes. One of the biggest lessons I learned about praying came from Dr. Miles Monroe, and he was teaching a group of leaders. And he said one of the biggest mistakes that many of us make in prayer is that we spend 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 60 minutes, 1 minute, asking for stuff, and then we get up and walk away and plug right back in, and we never create the space for the answer. Well, where's the answer going to come from? Where's the answer going to come from? It's got to come from within. You got to get quiet and allow the creator within to answer the prayer. Most of us, the reason our prayers aren't answered is because our environment is too loud. We don't have the space to think, which is the gift he gave you. One of the top gifts he gave you, and then the second gift he gave you was the ability to actually write the thought down so you can revisit it. Because think about how awesome it is if the Creator gives you an answer to your problem. Right? When do you want to write that down? When do you want to write that down so you can revisit it later? That's the other gift he gave you. That's what distinguishes us from the animal kingdom. And these two gifts, I'm afraid, you all, that the two gifts that the Creator's given us, the two best gifts you can have, we have undervalued And we are overvaluing what man can give. Oh, for Christmas, I want ... My wife, hey babe, what you want for Christmas? It's hard. That's a hard question for me. Because my main desire, she can't give me. You all understand that? What I want for Christmas is for just at least 5% of the community to know their purpose. She can't give that to me. What I want for Christmas is for us in the community to take the stance of full responsibility and step away from being victims. That's what I want for Christmas. Right? She can't give that to me. So that's why when this time of the year comes, my emotions don't shift. Right? Because there's nothing that she can wrap in a box that's going to satisfy my thirst. I hope y'all hear this. There's nothing she can wrap in a box that's going to satisfy my thirst. The only way my thirst is satisfied is if I have quiet time to think, quiet time to pray, and quiet time to listen. The only thing that's going to satisfy me is then once I receive the answer, I can write it down and then transpose it into a goal. And not just transpose it into a goal, but transpose it into a goal that makes me feel a certain type of way every time I read it. You want to put yourself in the top 5%? Create the space to think. Get silent and think, and then write down what shows up. You immediately go into the elite. You immediately become part of the elite in terms of practice. And when you're part of the elite in terms of practice, you become part of the elite in terms of status. That's quotable. Let me say it one more time. When you are a part of the elite in terms of practice, what you do, then you cannot help but become a part of the elite in terms of status, in terms of what you accomplish. That's why I'm so against us being average. Because greatness is right at our fingertips. It's like right there. All I got to do is be quiet and think. And then write down what comes to my mind. And then on Saturday, I'm going to give you the formula to what to do with it. That's it. Here's the last thing before we go to break. 20 years ago, I remember I was at an ATM. I was at work. I was at an ATM behind a person who I work with. They had $1,000 in their account. How do I know? They left the receipt. Right? I pulled money out. I had less than $1,000. We had the same job, right? We looked different backgrounds. And I said to myself, that ain't cool. How is it that we make the same thing about, and he's got 10 times more than me? I set a goal. I wrote it down. I thought it, right? I want $100,000 in my bank account by the end of the year, right? $100,000. I wrote it down. By the next year, I had the first $100,000 in my bank account. I know it works. Question is, will you work it?
But I was calling, as I was listening to you, I realized, and we've talked about this on the Lay Your Goals calls, but where your energy goes, your energy flows.
That's right.
And what I realized, and I don't know if
where your focus goes. Thank
you. Where your focus flows, your energy goes. Mm-hmm. I realized last year that there was a situation around this time of year that I did not want to happen again, and it must have stuck in my mind because it happened again. Same kind of situation financially. And I'm like, so I manifested it without realizing that I did. And what I was hoping, you know, in conversation, you might touch on that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you have, but, you know, it just hit me while I was listening to you. I'm like, I created this situation without realizing, without intending to.
So let's stay on the line, Pat. Here's exactly what happens. Here's exactly what happens. Most of us are living in our past. So something traumatic happens in the present, and then after it happens, it becomes the past. But we obsess about it. You just said it, where your focus goes, your energy flows. Your energy is powerful. It's your frequency. Your energy is powerful. And so if you focus on something you don't want to happen, it will happen. Here's the other thing. Most of us don't understand that the subconscious mind doesn't understand negative words, right? I do not want this to happen. No, I don't want that to happen. So when you say, I do not want this to happen, take out the not. I do want this to happen, right? That's the second thing. Here's the third and most important piece, Pat. When something that you don't like or something you don't desire takes place in your life, you have to gain clarity on what it is that you do desire.
Okay.
And that has to become your focus. Not what you don't want or didn't want or what you experienced, but instead where you intend to go. That has to become the focus. And that is how you manifest something different. Not by thinking about what happened, but thinking about where you intend to go.
Okay.
So how does that land?
It lands well. You know, ironically, of course, you know, as you know me, I know these things. It's the putting them into action that has been my issue. You know, and also getting quiet enough. You know, the chaos that, you know, surrounds me, getting still enough to let it sink in and not get caught up. You know, even so, like I said, sometimes I'm practicing it, and I know, like you said, the subconscious doesn't understand, you know, like you say, do not. It takes, the not is not. It ignores the not piece, the word. So I know this. I know that, as you were saying, I'm like, yep. But it's the action piece, or remembering it, or, you know, or going back to it, returning back to the lesson in the midst of the chaos or after things have calmed down, that I've been having struggle with.
This is why thinking about what you desire, let's go to the two gifts, okay? Thinking about what you desire in contrast to what happened, right?
Okay.
That's number one. And then writing it down is number two. This is why these things are so important. And then the other thing, you know, as a member, Pat, is then I say read it as much as you possibly can, at minimum twice a day.
Yep. Okay.
Now, so let's think about this. If you are reading what you desire, at minimum twice a day, how much space does what you don't desire have in your mind?
It doesn't. It gets crowded out.
100%. One of the reasons most of us are obsessing about the things that we don't want is because we haven't distinguished what it is that we do want. And then when we distinguish it, we haven't written it down. And then when we write it down, we don't read it.
That's true.
And it has to become an obsession.
Okay.
Look, what's your favorite TV show?
General Hospital.
Okay. When does it come on?
2:00 every day, Monday through Friday.
2:00, Monday through Friday, every day. About 1:30, what are you doing?
Starting to think about General Hospital coming on, or, you know, setting my, making sure things are set that I can record it or watch it later.
Okay. All right. Now, explain, like share with me, like when you can actually sit down and quiet and watch your favorite television show. Like 5 minutes before it happens, share with me the emotional feeling you have. Like, wow, you know, like what's going on for you emotionally when you know I got an hour, I get to be like all alone and pay attention to my favorite show. What's going on for you emotionally?
I'm excited. I'm winding down. I'm almost at peace. There's a peacefulness. It's like, I got time to myself. I get to enjoy this. Anticipation. Then you get the ambiance ready. So you might, I'll go get a pop or not. Well, I know, yes, pop. I know. I'm laughing as I'm editing what I'm saying. You're
like, did I say that to him?
Right.
It's okay. Go ahead. Keep going.
Get a pop or something to drink. And then, if I haven't eaten, make sure I got my food ready. And then sit down and wait for it to come on.
Okay. Now, you noticed that emotional process?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Why would it be any less than that for what it is you truly desire in life?
Wow. This helps because, when we set our goals and slay your goals, and, we do the, I forgot, the emotive statement.
Mm-hmm.
This puts it in, this makes it real. This brings clarity to what you just did with me.
Yeah. It's why would it be any different for what you want most in life? General Hospital is going to give you a high for 1 hour if it's a good episode, because I know you've gotten up like, I ain't like that.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It's going to give you a high for 1 hour. Thinking through what it is that you desire, writing it down, and meditating on that, if you do that consistently, within 5 years, you could be living it.
Wow. Okay.
If you gave it the same emotional preparation that you give General Hospital.
Okay.
My question would be for you in terms of tying in the family value system and a community code of conduct. I really believe that the true success of anyone is based in a code of conduct and the family value system. Mm-hmm. When will you start to teach and incorporate what you are doing? Because I know you and all the people around you invest in your family.
Absolutely. 100%.
And that is your foundation.
100%. Here's the thing, Pat. I mean, not Pat, Art. The family codes of conduct that you talk about are God's laws. I firmly believe that what you're pointing to is, as a community, we have to get back to following God's law, right? And if we follow God's law, and as men in our families, we spend time in God's law, then it will turn the community around. Now, here's the thing. In terms of family codes of conduct, if people aren't willing to read God's law, understand God's law, most importantly, deploy God's law, then there is no other code of conduct that we can deploy that can do better than that. And
let me add to that real quick, too. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
It's a fact. You talk about slay your goals, and you talk about people shaping their minds and their thoughts and becoming successful.
Yes.
And you push that.
Yes.
Even though all of what you are talking about is in God's law.
100%.
There's no two ways about it. So you have the ability to break down, quote unquote, the God's law in a manner which those can actually simplify what it is without getting into what we call religious doctrine. Mm-hmm. I'll leave you with that, and I end with the word, and what now, black people?
Got you. Thanks for the phone call, Art. Good question. Hey, I mean, that's what it comes down to. We can come up with codes of conduct and other things and call them other things. But in my opinion, the main thing that is troubling our community is that we've gotten away from God's law and we've made up our own laws, and look where it's gotten us. And then we're allowing other people to come up with all kinds of other stuff, whether it's, quote unquote woke or quote unquote this or that. And it's kind of like, man, look, if it doesn't measure up, it don't measure up, period. And I think we have to get away from, we can get so humanistically smart that we become spiritually dumb. And it's like, I'd rather be humanistically dumb and spiritually smart, which, by the way, if you're spiritually smart, you're going to see the humanistic stuff. You get it, you understand what's wrong with it, the whole nine, right? So then you're not really humanistically dumb, right? I'd rather be humanistically dumb, though, than to be spiritually dumb. And that's it. Now, here's the other thing about spirituality. People get the heebie-jeebies when you talk about spirituality. They don't like to, that's not what we, especially if we're not aligned, it makes us feel weird. Okay? It makes us feel weird, which should be a wake-up call for us. Like, even now, viewers are falling off. So back to you, Art. You're like, well, Linnell, why don't you just talk about God's law instead? It's like, well, that meat is too tough for a lot of people. My daughter, who's 1 year old, will feed her fish. I can't just put the whole fish on the plate. I got to cut it up into small pieces and, almost sometimes hand feed it to her so she can get the nourishment and the protein that she needs to grow. And so that's where a lot of times that's where we as a people are, where if you just take the piece of meat and put it in, they're going to choke. And so that's part of it. That's part of it. And the Creator's given me a very specific purpose to fulfill on. And that's what I'm doing. And people got questions. I've had pastors call, why you do this? Why you do that? Look, you know what you're supposed to do. I don't ask you about you. Don't ask you about me. I got one person to answer to, and that's the Creator. So I hear two questions. I hear one question about how did you save $100,000? That's one question. And then the other question that I hear is around limitation. Like, how do I throw off limiting beliefs?
Well, it was more of a expression than a question, but I definitely would be more than happy to hear your thoughts on it.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. So here's the first thing. To put a limitation on yourself is to put a limitation on God. Let that sink in. To put a limitation on yourself is to put a limitation on God. Why do I say that? You are the Creator's most magnificent creation. And He took all the limitations off. So the only place that limiting beliefs comes from are other people. And these are things that other people have placed on us that we decided to believe over and beyond the Creator. Let me just pause there. I'm curious, how that lands for you, Lisa. You still there?
Oh, yeah, I actually didn't hang up because you said something. But, it's kind of like what you said earlier. Even the Bible says that the wisdom of the world is foolishness with God and vice versa. So, absolutely, yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, if we can settle on that'll help you get to the 100,000. Okay. If I know I'm a child of God and He has placed no limitations on me, then that means nothing is limited. Okay? Nothing is limited. Which then means that if I can think it, I can achieve it. because the Creator would never give me a thought that he would not allow me to actually create. This is the beauty of the Creator. He never gives us ideas that we cannot create upon. Okay? So if that's the case, right, then it's not knowing per se how to do it as much as it is believing that you can. This is the believing that you can is the biggest hurdle that I see my clients have to overcome, and most people I encounter, they have to overcome. Actually believing they can. Now, when I was standing at the ATM and my coworker left his receipt in the receipt holder, okay, and I didn't notice it until my receipt came out, right? So my receipt came out, his fell on the floor, and I picked it up, and it was $10,000 and some change. That was like, wait a second, how we working the same job, right? Now he could have been doing other stuff. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? But in my mind, how we working the same job, making the same money, and he got more put away than I do. That was a wake-up call there, right? So for a lot of us, what helps is actually seeing somebody close to you do it. So my first question to you, Belisa, is who do you know that has $100,000 in an account? Because then I'm like, I need to get close to them. Right? This is because then you begin to see, like, the how is in that. Is this making sense, Lisa?
It is. It is. A lot of times people don't really talk about money too much.
They don't have to
really
talk about it. All you have to do is observe how they move. Look, all right. If somebody hung out with me, our days in the studio, our days spent probably more time than most people with me, right? Outside of my family, things like that. Our day, do I spend money excessively? No? Okay. Now, you're pretty close. Do you believe I have money?
Yes.
You believe I have a little or a lot?
A lot.
Okay, a lot. Okay. But I don't spend excessively. What has that taught you about money already? Just to kind of think about it. Turn on Ade's mic real quick. Turn on Ade's mic.
Use it wisely. I guess some, being a bit frugal with it. Just not excessive use of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, Belisa, you've traveled with me. What have you learned from observing me when it comes to money? Just think about it. See, because here's the thing. A lot of times it's right in front of us, but we don't think about it.
Right. And I guess I met you after, your success, so I didn't see the progression, even though you did talk about the mental and mindset aspects of it. But definitely I can see that when you do spend money, you spend it on quality as well as on investing in yourself and your family.
Okay.
And our community, the Black community.
Okay. So already we have 3 lessons about money from observation. I want us to really get this. Because a lot of times, like, the playbook is right in front of us and we're not paying attention. Okay. So, number 1, Ade said frugality. The people who are the least frugal are typically the poorest, in my observations. Okay? Are typically the poorest. All right? I'll give you an example. Years ago, my wife and I, we were traveling in Paris, and we missed the train. And I had reserved first-class tickets on the train, which means that we lost money. And I was upset. She's like, why are you so upset? Because we got money, right? And I was like, because I didn't respect the money. I didn't take the time to look at the tickets and respect the money I had spent. I didn't respect it. Now I have to pull more money out for money that was already spent, right? It wasn't years later she came back, she's like, I get that now, right? Respecting the money, frugality, okay? Number two, what you said is quality. That's what you said, right, Belisa? Lisa?
That's right.
Okay, so quality. Here's another mistake that people make. I need a T-shirt, so I go get the cheapest T-shirt, which means I have the T-shirt for a month or two, and I need another T-shirt again, right? So I spent, let's say, $5 on a T-shirt, but 2 months later, I have to buy another $5 T-shirt. 2 months later, I have to buy another $5 T-shirt. 2 months later, I have to buy a $5. Why not spend $40 and wear the T-shirt for 5 years?
Well, not only that, but on that note, the fact that your brand is on the apparel that you wear is, huge too.
Well, that's something else to observe. Like, it's something else to observe. Never have you gone onto the Facebook stream and saw Gucci across my chest, Versace across my chest. Like, and this is like my buddy was telling me, he was like, you could, but you don't. And I think some people are confused about what you've accomplished because they don't see it. All right, whatever. But I want them to see, like, what I'm showing is how you do it. So quality is the other thing that you talked about. Okay, then the other thing you said is we invest in ourselves. Benjamin Franklin said the best investment you can make is to put your purse into your head. Right? Your purse, meaning your dollars, into your head. Is making sense?
Absolutely.
Okay. So let me give you an example of what I mean. I have a retreat for leaders in Uganda. It's a leadership retreat. And it's expensive. Right? To trek gorillas is $5,000. So you already know that's only one aspect. That's one day of the trip. So it's an expensive trip. What I have found is that the leaders I'm talking to, it's not even, they're like, I'm in. It's expensive. Why are they so willing to spend money on that? Because they know for whatever they spend, they're going to get 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 times that in the networking, the learning, the experience, in terms of how it will give back to them. So the other thing is not just watching your spending, but actually being liberal in terms of when you're spending on yourself for your self-development. A few weeks ago, if you recall, I think I shared it with Slayer Goals members. I'm not sure I shared it on the show. But I was at a business conference. The person at the conference was like, I got this exclusive, package with retreats, et cetera, for business leaders who want to take their business to the next level. It was $40,000. I called my wife. I'm like, hey, I was going to do it. I just wanted to make sure we're on the same page. And I'm like, I'm bow, just like that, right? I know that if I have $1 million goal, right, I'm not going to get there for free. This is the biggest mistake we make, right? So then what do I have that I can actually invest in a safe and powerful way? If my mom taught me this lesson, this is the second to last lesson on money. My mom taught me this lesson years ago. She said, Linnell, when it comes to money, I was young, I was a teenager at the time. She's like, when it comes to money, you operate with a closed fist. And if you want to experience wealth in your life, son, you got to open up your head. Because when your fist is closed around the coins that you have, nobody can put more in. I was so busy trying to save the little bit I had, right? And she witnessed it at a conference. I wanted to buy this product. I didn't buy it. And I'm like, well, I only got 200. They wanted 100. I ain't gonna spend 100 of my 200 on this product. And she said, well, how bad did you want it, son? I said, well, I really wanted it, but I only got 200. Right? And she was like, baby, you can never get more in your hand unless you open it. And actually let the 100 go. so 1,000 can come back. We are the ones that place the limits on ourselves. To put a limitation on yourself is to put a limitation on God. So for you, Belisa, you got to figure out what your relationship with money is. It's not about how to save 100,000. It's more so, do you believe you can?
That's my question. Can resistance affect something that's already done?
Absolutely, 100%. So the great question. Can resistance affect something that's already done? 100%. Because the Creator created the earth with an abundance. Why is it that our community lives in ghettos, food deserts, and the birds that perch on the trees outside our homes in these food deserts have more food than we have? Why is that? When we are the chosen. Why is it? It's because the energy that we emit. The energy that we emit. Either it's an energy of love or it's an energy of fear. And doubt is sourced by fear. So whenever I have doubt, it's sourced by fear. And whenever I have an aspiration and a hope, it's sourced by love. And it comes down to which one you're giving the most energy. And in our community, we've allowed what we're plugged into to actually source the energy that we have. And that energy ain't for us. The American operating system that you're plugged into ain't for you. It's going to fill you with fear. Turn on the news. It's going to fill you with fear, and that fear then vibrates into, oh, but I want to do this, and it turns into doubt. I started the show this way. I'm going to end it. The Creator gave us the two best gifts you're going to get. The two best gifts you're going to get are right now on the show. I'm telling you right now. In the next 48 hours, the two best gifts you're going to get is understanding the gift the Creator gave us to think. To think, our cognitive ability to get quiet and think, to unplug and think. And then secondly, write it down. If you go within yourself and you start being very clear about your inputs, because inputs become outputs. I can't have fearful, crazy inputs and then come to the masterclass on Saturday and think I'm going to write out my goals and not be covered in doubt. You got to unplug completely. Then you come, and if it's sourced by love, all it can do is grow. Most of us, it is difficult for us to believe in ourselves because we're plugged into a system that doesn't believe in us. Why would you be plugged into that? Why would you be plugged into a system that every subliminal message tells you, you're not worth nothing, you're not enough? Unplug. The biggest gift I can give you, unplug this Christmas, this so-called Christmas, this winter solstice. Unplug, think, allow the Creator to fill your mind with the thoughts and desires He has for you. Write them down and meditate on that in 2024. Hey, my inspired peoples. Linnell Harris here, certified ontological coach and trainer. I'm so excited that you're watching the channel. By the way, did you know you can catch the show live at 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. every Sunday morning? You can. All you have to do is go to my Facebook stream, Coach Linnell Harris, catch the stream live, or you can listen to the radio show via iHeart at WVON 1690 AM. But since you're here, if you love the content, I ask that you share it, like this particular video, and subscribe to the channel. I hope you're having a great day.